Welcome back. I'm Barry Craig. I'd like to begin today with a brief editorial. Our college has many goals. Among these are promoting global awareness, diversity, and multiculturalism. We don't just preach these goals, we practice them. Example of that is our 4th annual Hispanic, I've done it again, I swear, Tom, this is awful. It's terrible. Golly.
Barry, you used to go as one take Barry.
I know. Welcome back. I'm Barry Craig. Our college has many goals, and if I may make an editorial comment about some of these goals, 3 of them are to promote global awareness, promote diversity, and promote multiculturalism. Today, my 3 guests are going to talk about how that we at the college don't just preach these goals, we practice them. We're about to celebrate our 4th annual Hispanic Heritage Celebration, and with me today are 3 prime movers in this celebration. They are Carolyn Perry, who teaches Spanish here at the college. We also have, let me get these names correct, Martha Argotte.
Yes.
Is that close?
Very good.
All right. And Mary Katz. Martha is with Human Resources at Lourdes Hospital, and Mary Katz is Director of Education Outreach at the Carson Center. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Now, the rules are this. The guests talk 95% and I talk 5%.
Great.
They're here to see you, not me. So who would like to lead off?
I'd like to lead off, Barry. Thank you so much for having us. It's really a pleasure to be here, and I just want to get the word out. This is an important event for us. The 4th annual Hispanic Heritage event is going to be September the 23rd, just coming around the corner. And this year we have something a little different, and I want to let everyone know what's going to be happening so that they can come and enjoy it. On September the 23rd, over in the Student Center at 12:30, we're going to offer a free lunch, Hispanic lunch, prepared by our culinary staff and Chef Patrick Fletcher here at the community college.
Well, now
After
detail the lunch. You can tell I enjoy
the lunch.
eating.
The lunch is going to be very tasty. His menu is a variety of different types of Hispanic foods. Spanish meatballs, I won't know the Spanish names here, but enchiladas and some chicken dishes and special sauces, but he's going all out for us.
Now that brings up an interesting point.
Yes.
We have a lot of Mexican restaurants in our area, quite
Right.
good,
Right.
and again, I enjoy many of them.
Right.
How authentic is this cuisine? Is this real Mexican or Americanized Mexican?
Well, I'll start, but I think Martha might be one to answer that as well. I mean, I personally think it's a good attempt, but not as authentic as if you were in the country. But Martha,
Correct.
you may want to speak on that.
Correct. It has to be to the palate of the Americans because that's where, who they're catering to. So it's not authentic as if you went to Mexico. Even going to states like Texas, the Mexican restaurants there are a lot different than the ones here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, give me for an example. I think that Americans think that Mexican food is very hot and very spicy, but from what I gather, that's not always the case.
A lot of Hispanic food tends to be spicy, but it's catered to each palate. For instance, it can be, the hot sauce can be on the side. Just like when we order a salad here, we might ask for the salad dressing on the side. Right. So it's not necessarily spicy, but we do like more flavorful food, I will say that. And it also varies. The Hispanic culture, the beauty of it is that it's so diverse in itself. For instance, I'm from Ecuador. I eat food that's very different than Mexicans do. South Americans eat food that's very different than Central Americans or other Latin American countries. So we in Ecuador do like spicy food. And we call it ají. Ají is the hot sauce. Mexicans like a lot of jalapenos in theirs. So, you know, they might have a different hot sauce, but everything is to the side. You don't necessarily have to, every spoonful that you bite into, you know, grab a glass of water. That's not necessarily how we all cook.
Yeah.
And the one thing, we were in Chicago several years ago and ate in a Spanish restaurant, and many of the terms that the Spanish use for foods are not the same as in Mexico.
Exactly.
Thought that was interesting.
Even throughout Central and South America, Martha would agree. I mean, that the names of the foods are most challenging when I'm teaching Spanish because it's going to vary depending upon where you are.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, it seems to me too that, of course, obviously a lot of the culture in the Americas involve corn, and you have a lot of. It seems to me that a lot of Mexican food involves corn dishes and various types.
Right.
And of course, in Spain, would I guess be more wheat, because corn is an American vegetable introduced to the Europeans many years ago. So,
Well, we're going to have this great lunch, and then we'll move on. Then after the lunch, we're going to have a short little discussion about what does this mean? What does this Hispanic Heritage Month all about? And just to give you a quick overview, it really started in 1968. The president proclaimed a week of observation at that time, but then it developed under Ronald Reagan to be a full month. And since that time, it's been from September 15th to October 15th to observe Hispanic heritage. And really, people ask, well, why is that month? And some people will know and others may not know, so I'll go ahead and fill you in. It's, of course, a time of many countries' independence from Spain.
Right.
Mexico, September 16th, Chile, September 18th, and there are 5 Central American countries that observe their independence from Spain. But the true observation and the true purpose of the celebration is to celebrate the extraordinary contributions from so many Hispanic Americans. And so we join people all over the United States during this time in doing a type of celebration. And it's just been an overwhelmingly successful event. This will be our 4th year. Martha was involved in the very first one we did here on campus. We invited A.J. Sales, who is originally from Cuba. We invited the Nunezes. That's Laura and Nestor, who now are very successful restaurant owners of Martin Fierro downtown, Argentine Grill. And Martha was so helpful to MC the entire panelists, and it was just a really interesting time for them to come and share their culture, their heritage. And so this is where we've come. We've come from just a panel discussion to last year, you might remember, we had Charles Goff from Mexico, and he was the anthropologist, so he came and talked to us for a couple of days about the history of corn and Mesoamerica and current issues in Mexico.
I believe I had him on the show.
Yes, you did.
I thought so.
You did.
Yeah.
You did. So we're coming full circle now, and I would love for Martha to share just a little bit more about what this event has meant to her. And then, of course, Mary, the event after the lunch, Barry, and after a little talk, we're going to hear a program from the Carson Center, the Sones de Mexico. So maybe if Martha could tell a little bit about what we've done in the past here on our campus.
Well, to backtrack a little, it's a month-long celebration because Ronald Reagan understood Hispanics like to party, and 1 week was not enough for us to celebrate, so we made it a month long.
That's great.
But no, the first event was wonderful in the aspect that the community and the students at West Kentucky Community Technical College were able to get together and learn a little bit more and join together in that celebration. We were able to have different Hispanics in our community share some of their traditions and customs. And moving here, I've been in Paducah 6 years, you do see a lot of Mexican restaurants and you think, well, Mexicans, the only Hispanics. But McCracken County has so many Hispanics. Paducah in itself has so many Hispanics. And it's just wonderful to learn because earlier I said we are all diverse. It's just like thinking about the United States. There's such diversity in the United States from the north to the south, the East Coast to the West Coast. Well, Hispanics, it's the same. There are 21 countries whose primary language is Spanish. And none of us are the same. We eat different foods, we have, different traditions. And that first event was a great opportunity to learn some of those. Nestor and Laura talked about gauchos, and if you go to their restaurant, you see the men dressed in the same, outfits and everything. We learned about Año Viejo, which is a celebration, the old year, that is done on December 31st, where you put aside everything that occurred in that old year, and you burn, sort of like a scarecrow. It's done out of paper mache, and you welcome the new year. We talked about quinceañeras, which is the rite of passage for a young woman when she turns 15. As Americans, we celebrate sweet 16s. So we learned the similarities in those celebrations. But there's just so many things that we were able to share with the students and other people from the community that attended that celebration. And I'm looking forward to this year's event because every year it just gets better and better. And it's a wonderful opportunity for me, and thank you so much for always inviting me. But it's wonderful because Lourdes also does a lot of diversity events for us to collaborate on this and to get the word out to other people in the community, to learn about the different Hispanic cultures, the backgrounds, try our food because it's just delicious. I am biased, but Hispanic food is great. The music, learn a little dancing. At one of the events, we did have a traditional dance from Veracruz, Mexico, and it's just beautiful to see and appreciate that. And the school, you were right, the school does not just talk the talk, but they walk it. They've had a lot of events here that celebrate those various cultures and dances and everything. So I'm glad to be involved.
Well, we appreciate your coming.
One of the things that language fascinates me and accents fascinate me, and would it be correct to say that from Mexico to the tip of South America, you would find as much diversity in accents as you would from, say, Kentucky to Maine or Maine to Florida?
Oh, yes.
Definitely.
So you can tell by an accent where someone is from a Latin American country.
Pretty much so, yes.
Well, can you give us just a few examples of that? And we're all we in America, down where we are, it's you all, and up north it's you guys. So, I mean, can you give us some examples of how you could tell, say, an Argentinian from a Chilean or a Guatemalan or a Mexican?
Well, a lot of it is, like you were saying, the accents. For instance, someone that's from Spain, they predominantly speak Castilian, and their Spanish ends in Z's. So when they speak, instead of saying, for instance, casa, which means house, they must say cata. So
TH.
Yes.
Cata.
Cata. So you hear it a little differently, and then you'll know that it's someone typically that's from Spain.
Well, now, would all Spaniards speak Castilian, or is that sort of like BBC English?
Yes, I mean for the majority, but they do have that accent, and you can tell that difference. A lot of times it's words that are used along with their dialects. And I'll give you an example. I went to a Mexican restaurant, and dessert's my favorite part of a meal.
Mine too.
So I ordered sopapillas, and I said, con helado, because I ordered in Spanish and it means with ice cream to me. And they looked at me and they, just stared, and I was like, did I say something wrong? I'm like, I speak Spanish. But Mexicans call it nieve. They call ice cream nieve. Well, nieve to me means snow. But when you think about it, a scoop of vanilla ice cream is white, it resembles snow, so I can understand that. But just that word, so now I know when I go to a Mexican restaurant, I ask for nieve if I want ice cream. So I even got educated being Hispanic.
Well, it's very similar. George Bernard Shaw once said, the Americans and the English are two people hopelessly divided by a common language. And of course, if you travel in Great Britain, the words are very different. But it's like you can say, well, what does this mean? You can communicate, but you go through the whole list of the bonnet for the hood of a car, the windscreen instead of the windshield, and some of these are, the word usage is really wonderful. I have a British fellow in one of my classes, and so we were comparing various words, and years ago my wife and I were walking on a road in rural England, and there was a sign that said no tipping, and that means no dumping. And so it's funny, it's like, what would this be? And instead of saying yield, they say give way.
Right.
And instead of having exit, it's way out. And so I was looking for far out after way out. But and that's what really makes it fun. But the accents,
it is what makes it fun for me as a
well, now when
as
you
a
took
teacher.
Spanish in college a few years ago,
Just a few,
just
yeah.
a few years
Yeah.
ago, do they teach Castilian Spanish in American universities?
Not so much. Usually you'll take a year to travel and understand it from that experience, but typically they don't. In the United States, most universities do not teach the class in Castilian unless your professor happens to be from Spain, and that would be his native dialect. But it is one of the, you're speaking about the vocabulary. It's just, I enjoy speaking Spanish with my Hispanic friends so that I could learn some of their new nuances and their different vocabulary they use in their country. So I tell my students, it's a lifelong journey to learn a language. It's not something you do overnight.
It is.
Absolutely.
It's absolutely wonderful.
So, well, I just am anxious to let Mary tell us about
yes,
what's happening.
we don't want to be monopolizing the conversation.
We are so thrilled that this Hispanic celebration, the lunch, then we'll talk about the Heritage, National Heritage event, and then to top it off in Clement's Fine Arts Building with Sones de Mexico, which is Sounds of Mexico. This is a true wonderful collaboration from the Carson Center, and we thank them so much for providing this for our students and the community on our campus. So
thanks, Carolyn.
Go ahead and tell us
about
this.
To be a part of this partnership. I'm so glad, Barry, that you touched on things that really define a culture: food, language, and of course music. And we're glad, very happy to bring the music part of this in our partnership with WKCTC. We are presenting a group called Sones de Mexico on September 23rd for a public performance. But before they perform at the Carson Center, they're going to come here. They do a program that's funded through the National Endowment for the Arts called Beyond the Music. It'll be a lecture demonstration. And I want to tell you a little bit about Sones de Mexico. They are an ensemble group from Chicago. Most of them are Mexican born. They grew up in regions around Mexico playing regional music with regional instruments. And just as you were talking about how in different areas of different countries, Hispanic countries, there's different foods, there's different language, same in Mexico. In each region, like we would have maybe bluegrass, or we would have the blues or country, they have their own sound in each region, which is what son means, I guess. I'm sorry, I'm not the Spanish major, I was a French major. And but so they have a different sound, and they will come with over 40 instruments that are actually made and played in Mexico. Oh, that'll be fun. And and just kind of explore the different regions of Mexico. So it's interesting not just to really promote the Mexican heritage, which is what they're all about. They're educators, they're musicians, they're really trying, their mission is pretty much the same as the college here, and just trying to promote cultural diversity and Hispanic heritage, but they're obviously promoting Mexican heritage. But how nice for other Hispanic people to learn about the differences as well as non-Hispanics. So they will have a wonderful concert performance that evening on the 23rd at 7 p.m. They'll be at the Clemens Fine Arts Center, which we're so excited about this partnership, because the Carson Center, that's part of our mission, is to offer multicultural programming so that we can be more inclusive of our whole community, and also to partner with WKCTC and many other organizations to make it a community-wide celebration. So we love to bring the arts out into the community. So we're really thankful to Gail Robinson Butler for the Clemens Fine Arts Center connection, and they'll be here for this lecture demonstration, and they'll bring some of their instruments. They also, part of the performance is a Mexican dance demonstration. I don't know that they're going to bring any dancers to this. They might. It just kind of depends, but we hope they will. And then they're going to do 2 performances in the morning at the Carson Center of their Fiesta Mexicana for several high school, preschool through high school regions. So that gets them interested in the whole celebration as well. And I purposely, I was contacted by several high school teachers in Southern Illinois about this group, just educating us on this group is out there, you really need to bring them to our area. And I'm so excited that we got to do that, and because there's obviously some interest and a need for this kind of education and entertainment. So we're really excited.
Well,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I just want to make sure we really get the word out that this is open for anyone. Obviously we're targeting our students, our faculty, but we want anyone in the community to be involved in this lunch and this celebration and the event over in the Clements.
Free.
It's all free.
Yeah.
That's the big message here. They just have to let us know they're coming for the lunch. That's all. And so we just want to make sure that all of the community knows they can participate, because we are really outreaching to the community in this event. So.
We spoke a few minutes ago about accents and dialects and language. Music, interesting. I'm guessing that Latin American music is a mixture of Native American and Spanish music. When you think of Spanish music, you think of guitars.
Yes.
Mexican bands often use trumpets with the guitars, which is an interesting combination. What's the history of that, the Mexican band? 'Cause one of our favorite Mexican restaurants in Mayfield, on one night a week, they'll have a band with the guitars and trumpets. Do you know the background of that?
Well, I do know that, our typical image of Mexican music is mariachi band, trumpets, like you said, and all of that. But within Sone de Mexico really wants us to know that many of their instruments came from indigenous materials, woods and different things found in different regions. I do know that they also they claim that Mexican music has an African influence, and that's little known.
Yes, especially on the Caribbean
Yes,
side.
yes.
The Caribbean, Veracruz,
Right.
you'll have more of influence of the black rhythms.
Sure. And I've seen some of these groups, and I've actually seen these traveling in Europe. They're Peruvians, and it's is it sort of flutes? I'm not a musician, I understand, but it's sort of they're more wind instruments.
Indian flutes is what they are known
Right.
for in that
And
area.
that's a very different
It's a very beautiful music.
It's also gorgeous music.
Very beautiful.
But, again, I think of mariachi bands
Right.
as that. And Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass. You remember that? Are you
Oh,
yes.
Well, two of us will remember Herb Alpert.
I actually do.
Anyway, well, okay, three of us are. That's before your time.
There's one story that I haven't 100% confirmed, that the name mariachi comes from the name marriage in French, which is
Mariage.
right. So they were playing this, mixture of the European sound with the Mexican sound at a marriage ceremony, and they were putting together a new sound that sounded really different, and that's how they came up with the name the Mariachi Band. So,
Well, if it's
and
not
it's certainly
true, it should
very
be.
popular in Mexico.
Right.
Yes.
So now, Ecuadorian music, how would that differ from Mexican music?
Well, a lot of what we were discussing, for instance, going back a little to the food, it depends what predominantly is grown in that region. Well, the same thing with the music. The instruments goes back to what instruments were created years ago and now they've developed. For instance, if at one point they were wood, now they may be brass, but it stems from their ancestors. I will tell you, the types of music that we dance to varies as well. And I don't know if you've heard a lot of them, but there's salsa, there's merengue, cumbia. So those types of dances, and it's what we call the music, varies. Just like we would say hip hop or country music, and we have the line dance and all those things. Well, the same thing in the Hispanic culture. You get to the Caribbean and to Mexico, and they do a lot of what's called bachata. So it's sort of like how we have two-step, and it just varies depending the regions, the type of music that you listen to and the type of music you dance to. But it's just fun to learn. For instance, I'm still trying to learn bachata because it's not something that in Ecuador we predominantly dance. So anytime you would like a dance session, I'll be more than happy.
I believe I'll watch. Thank you very much.
That's great.
And traditional dances are beautiful. To see people dress in traditional garments and perform the dances that have significance to them. Like we were just saying about mariachis. Mariachis always are dressed in traditional garments. Yes. And it's just nice to see that. So there's other types of dances that have significance to them. For instance, we had here at the college where two women were dancing with, they initially had a sash around their waist.
That was so funny.
But it went on the floor and they used their feet to, tie a bow knot, a complete bow with their feet from the sashes that they were wearing around their waist. So just to see that whole routine and then the significance of what it stood for was very nice.
And I'm sure there are experts who study the roots of this, but it's a fascinating blend of this European Spanish culture with Native American culture. And of course, there's such a diversity of Native American culture. Cherokee are much different from Incans, and Incans are much different from Aztecs, and so on.
Absolutely.
And that's what really makes this fascinating. And again, language.
The way the world is now, new sounds being created from all those sounds, you know, as we speak, probably, you know.
Well, and of course, the use of electronic music, I'm sure, influenced it as well. When you think about that, because there are electric guitars, obviously, and things like that, it's really interesting.
It's going to be fascinating, and I was noticing the group from Sones de Mexico. They're from all different parts of Mexico, and of course that's what they're promoting. But it'll be real interesting to see what they have to say, because their production here is going to be more of a demonstration, you know, and a talk. So we'll get a lot of interaction, I think, and can ask them a few more questions on some of this, and then see them again that night.
Of course, lots of times when we bring in various performers, there's a Q&A with kids, which is just terrific when the actors and actresses come out and talk to the audience. That adds a lot of fun to it.
Oh, I definitely think they want that to happen during Beyond the Music, this free outreach. They definitely want people to ask questions, and you know, yes, I think it's great because it fits into the whole idea of heritage. I mean, they may learn something and take it and try to create a new sound, but it's so important to know what our heritage is and where that came from. So,
and I would like to ask our Spanish professor a very practical question.
Yes.
Given the diversity of accents and dialects, when you're teaching an intro to Spanish class, how do you do that?
Well, I really just take the middle road. I don't go to the South American accent, which has a real strong j sound, and I don't go to the Castilian accent because they really won't hear that unless they travel to Spain. So I go right down the middle, and I did most of my study in either Mexico or just, you know, and then did some in Spain, but most of the time that I have studied has been in Mexico. So it's pretty clear cut, and I think it's very close to what they teach with the programs that I have for the textbook program. So it's a lot of fun. And you know, I get that question a lot because students do hear different accents when they're out and talking with other Hispanic friends. And I always tell them, take a little notebook, you know, and try to get a new word, you know, from a friend. And I promote this all the time. Make friends with your Hispanic neighbors. Become a good friend and do things with them and go out and have a good time and learn some new words, and it just opens up the whole world.
I dare say you really know a language well when you can pick up accents, because a lot of Americans who go to England can't tell the difference between a Yorkshireman and somebody from Somerset, and they're as different as chalk and cheese, as the Brits say, and that would really make it fun. Obviously Spanish is a Romance language, so what percentage of Spanish as spoken in Latin America would be influenced by Castilian Spanish as well as Native American? Because I know a lot of words are Native American words, aren't there?
Well, there are many words, yes, that are pure Nahuatl. I mean, if you're talking about Mexico, for example, that's the Aztec names. I mean, all of these names really are more, Chocolate is really an Aztec name. And there are many more that just come from the true, as you call it, native or Aztec or Mayan.
But you know, even
or
American English is heavily influenced by other languages. One of the funniest experiences we had in Britain, the first year we were there in 1978, we were being driven down to the seacoast, and a freight train went by. Of course, that's a goods train in England, and the last car passed, and I said, "There goes the caboose," and she said, "What?" Our guide, and he said, "That's the guard's van." Well, isn't caboose a Spanish word? I think I read that somewhere, that's a Spanish word. They said, but you think of all the Spanish words, French words, German words that have influenced our language. English is such an amalgam, which makes it very difficult to learn, doesn't it?
Yes, and there are a lot of English words that derived from the Spanish. And you know, we all the Romance languages, as we call them, come from Latin. So they all have Latin prefixes or some root to Latin. And that's why it's easy for a Hispanic to be able to pick up French or to pick up Italian, because there's so much similarity.
And that's why they still teach Latin in European schools.
Yes.
I wish
And
we
we-
taught them here, but that's
I took it in high school, but that was in the ancient days. It was right after Rome fell, so when I
Right.
took it anyway. So we're out of time. Thank you all very much for
But
coming.
thank you for having us,
And
and hope
so much.
everyone can come.
Before we go, very quickly, what is a contact telephone number when they can find out about the Hispanic
All right,
Heritage Celebration?
534-3205.
270 area code.
Exactly.
We're out of
And
time.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.